Hi, everybody. Welcome to Art School Live. I'm your host for today and for this week, 𝗟rie 𝗕𝗿. I'm really excited for our show today. I first heard about Lon Brauer due to the plein air salon. I managed the plein air salon and he had entered quite frequently. However, I didn't know he was a pastel artist until recently when our events manager, 𝗟cie, had asked him to be part of Pastel Live. So I'm really excited because I absolutely love Lon's oil work. All of he's just very, I don't even know how to describe it, but his work is awesome and I absolutely love it. So I'm excited to see how that translates into the world of pastel. So let's bring in Lon.
Hey,
how are you?
𝗟rie. This is great. We haven't done one of these together, so it's really fun to be able to finally do it. And I got to meet you at PACE.
I know. I was just going to say that. It's so,
I mean,
so many people at PACE that watch this and have participated in salon and all kinds of things. So it was great.
We live in a weird world where we know people, but we've never met them, so
right.
So it's good.
That was awesome to meet you. So you said you're on location today. Where are you calling from?
I am. I'm in Annapolis, Maryland right now. The Maryland Federation of Art does Paint Annapolis. It's a plein air event every year. It's the first week of June. And I've been fortunate to be able to get into it. I don't know, this might be my 8th or 9th time. It's been a bunch.
Nice.
And, it's when you go back to a location numerous times, you get an opportunity to really look at things a second time, a third time, fourth time. And so, and you weed out a lot of things. The first time you're there, you don't know anything. And the second time it's better, and so on and so forth. And, I've kind of explored almost everything. And yet, in the last couple of days, I've already found things I wouldn't have thought of. So, it's always good.
When you go back, do you paint something new every year, or do you
when I get in the car to go and I get here, I have an agenda. I think, okay, I painted that last year. It didn't really go so well. I think I'll try it again. Or it went pretty well, but now I'm different, so I want to try it again. So, and I'll have like 3 or 4 of those, and then they'll, when I get here, they usually get out the window. Sometimes I have to do them just to get out of my head because I've been thinking about them for 9 months. But but then there's other things. Like this morning, I was going to the waterfront so I could do some boats, and these guys were painting, doing touch-up paint on a building, and they had ladders and that sort of thing. So I said, nah, I got to paint that. So
yeah,
painted that, and I'll have to do the boats later. So you just never know what's going to pop up.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
What are you going to share with us today?
Well, I think some may know and some may not, but I've been an oil painter for a very long time. That's kind of my thing. And then last September I got into pastel, and conversations with 𝗟cie, and we ended up doing. I got into pastels and I really like it. Now I'm not.
You were so recently into pastels. I thought this was something you'd been doing forever and just kind of came back to.
No, and that's the thing. It was really, really brand new. Although, well, it's not entirely brand new. When I was a kid, in the early 70s, when I first took some classes, it was all in charcoal and pastel. So I had touched the stuff, but in the oil painting world, we kind of look at pastel and kind of go, yeah, well, it's kind of, that's kind of for children. And and I think, I don't know, now that I've done it a little bit, I'm not sure that I don't think I feel that way anymore, because it's just really fun. And I think I told Eric a while back when we did one of these podcasts, I said, for someone just starting out, rather than pick up oil paint, why don't you, get some pastels, because it's akin to, in many ways, when we used to do chalk drawings on the sidewalk or crayons on paper, it's kind of the same thing, because you're picking up a stick, a colored stick, and you're putting it on a surface, and there's nothing more pure than that. You don't have to worry about mediums. You don't have to mix, you have to mix colors. The color's right there. So,
which I have found means you have to have more and more and more pastels to find the right color you want. You can do
okay. There's 2 downsides. There's 2 downsides to the whole thing. One is, you got to go keep buying pastels, because number one, you're grinding them down to nothing, and the other thing is you always want new colors. And the other, of course, is you got to put everything under glass, and so there are some downsides to it. But once you get your, you don't need I don't. It's you go to the store and you look at pastels and you go, I gotta have that one. I gotta have that one. It's eye candy for
Oh,
for our
100%.
lizard brains. We gotta have it. But once you kind of have
Colorado, where
yeah,
𝗟𝗏𝗂𝗏 Pastels is an hour away from me, and
yeah.
I just get to drive down there and walk in, and just it makes me tear up every time because it's so pretty seeing all of them just laid out there so nicely.
Do you empty your pockets when you do that, or
Oh my
are you?
gosh.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
try not to. I stick to a budget. I'm like, okay, at least the last time I stuck to a budget. The first time I definitely bought like, I want that and that and that, and bought so many. The last time I was like, okay, I got to be good. These are the 6 that I absolutely need, and then I can get 2 extras that I want.
Right. Well, and see, and that's what I've kind of found too. Really don't need a lot of colors, but you have to experiment with so many things before you kind of find. It's the same way with oil paint. You have to use all these colors and find out, well, I don't really need all those colors. I really need a more limited palette. But
Yeah.
I like to use a lot of soft purples, and for skies, I lean towards a sort of an ultramarine blue and all the values in there. And then you got a lot of neutrals and greens. I like to have a good range of greens, but that's pretty much all I do.
Yeah.
Now today, I really wish I had some. I don't have any real reds with me for what we're going to be doing, but I wish I did. But we'll manage with what we got. Because the thing, and I know you found too. Once you open your box and you have all these colors to choose from, all you have to do is look down and pick it up. The one you want is the one you don't have. So you have to then go to the next one over one way or another, and you go, well, I got to go back to the art supply store and get myself another piece of pastel. So
never have enough.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get this show started. I'm excited to see what you're gonna do.
Okay.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
𝗟𝗏𝗄𝗏 Stober. Welcome to Art School Live. If you're just joining us, I'm 𝗟𝗏𝗄𝗏 Stober, filling in for Eric this week. He is preparing for his Paint Adirondacks trip later this week, and it starts on Saturday, and Lon is actually going to be there. So if you are going to be at the Paint Adirondacks event, look up Lon when you're there. I'm really excited for this demo today. Lon is going to be painting some pastels for us today. And if you didn't catch his introduction, he's actually only been painting with pastels since September, which I did not know. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be doing. So take it away, Lon.
All right. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm working with one camera, and it's the one on my computer. So I'm going to swing this thing around. Hopefully it won't bother anybody. And then I'm going to bring this in. I'm kind of working in a shoebox here, but we'll make it work. One thing I want to talk about today is with pastel. Like I said, or as Carrie said, I've only been doing pastel for a very short time. I do have some experience with it when I was a kid doing it, but as an adult, this is all fairly new to me. So I'm still learning things. If you are new to pastel, this is you and I are going to be in the same club.
Oh, one thing I love it. She just put up your reference photo. I'm super excited.
Good. Oh yeah, there you go. Chickens. Yeah, I can tell you all about chickens. We'll get into that later. Well, I'll tell you now. During COVID, of course, we couldn't go anywhere, so I would go to a friend of ours that just in town had a stables, and I thought, well, I'm going to work on my horse anatomy, and because I had nothing else I could do, and she had chickens underfoot and a lot of roosters. I don't know why she had so many roosters. I don't know anything about chickens particularly, except that I think you're supposed to have one rooster, not a dozen. Anyway, they were underfoot, and they're a whole lot easier to do than the horses. So I ended up doing chickens, and I got pretty good at chickens. So anyway, that's where this is coming from partly. And they're just very fun to do. One thing I want to talk about is mark making. The thing that I've learned about pastel is because it's a medium that I consider a crude medium, which is one of the reasons why I'm drawn to it. I like things that are limited. It's like working with vine charcoal. I like a big stick of vine charcoal, something about the size of my thumb, because you can't get caught up in detail. And I think it forces you to really understand the tool and to try to find ways to finesse as much out of it as you can. So, a piece of pastel typically is, it looks about an inch long, and about this size and shape. But what can you do with it? And have found that most of everything that I do has 5 different kinds of marks. And if you can understand and master those 5 marks, then you can do a lot. Now you have to keep in mind, I will preface all of this. What I'm doing is what I kind of call loosey-goosey. It's not a tight drawing. It's if I wanted to do tight stuff, I'd get into hard pastel or get into pastel pencil. But most everything I'm going to do is going to be with this size piece of stick. So the first mark that I make, the one you're going to use a lot, that I call that just the bold short stroke. Mm-hmm. You learn to go this direction, you go this direction, and you just have to find a way to be very bold about it, put it down, leave it alone. In fact, everything that I do, I like to put it down and leave it alone. And then an extension of that is what I call accent marks, where you do just little marks like this. Sometimes they're just little ones like this, or you might get some dash marks, or maybe this kind of thing. You'll see when I'm working on the reference photo, you see that sometimes those will pop up. Another one is what I call the sweeping mark, where you go like this, or you can come across like this. So there's, so it's a full sweep across the surface. And then of course you got linear marks, so you can learn how to make them either with the edge this way. Not sure if you can see that or not, but people will talk about pastel as being a painting medium, which it is, because it's pigment, in a dry form. But it's also, for me, the big draw is the fact that it's a drawing medium.
Yeah,
and
it's very versatile.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 marks, and the last one is I just call the squiggle mark, and I just love doing this, which is essentially it's a little bit like random handwriting. Okay. Now, so if you can do those 4 different kinds of marks, you're way ahead of the game. Now, let me talk about paper. I'm going to kind of digress, but let's talk about paper. I didn't bring any paper with me here to paint Annapolis. So I had to improvise. I went to the hardware store, and this is 400 grit sandpaper, which is the same surface that a 400 sanded paper that you get at the art supply store is. It's just not as thick, and it probably is not. Say, well, is it archival? No, I'm sure it's not. Yeah. But for someone starting out, it's affordable and it's easy to get. It's easy to get. I was like, I don't know, it's $1 a sheet, something like that. So, and you can go. Then you don't feel so precious about your materials, and you can go ahead and experiment. Because if you don't experiment, you don't want to buy expensive stuff just when you're learning to experiment. Yeah. You're really throwing a lot of money down the drain, because you're not going to be good to begin with. You're just not. You may get something really good, but it's going to be an accidental thing as opposed to something that you intended to do. So,
and I've heard a lot of artists will when with the UArt or things like that, they'll actually wash off the pigment and reuse their paper. But I have found that it's just not as grippy after you do that.
That's true. I have a story related to that. Okay, so in September, when I started doing pastel, right away I got a note from Sky, and she said, "Would you like to be in Pastel Live?" And I said, "Okay, that'd be great." But I had no portfolio. I mean, I had no bona fides, if they will. So I had to get a portfolio together. I said, I thought, I've got almost a year to get that together. I thought, no, I don't. I've got a week, because I need to get it on my website. Yeah. So what I did was I went to Dick Blick, and I bought one sheet of paper, and I did a drawing, a pastel on it, and I photographed it, and then I wiped it off. And then I did another painting, and I photographed it, and I wiped it off. So I did that about 6 or 7 times on this one sheet of paper. And it did, at some point, it did get to where it didn't really grip. You know, it can only take so much abuse, but it does take the sanded paper particularly does take a lot of abuse. You can really work on it before it you know, just can't do it anymore. Okay, so what I'm going to do from here, the other kinds of mark, and you have these 5 marks that you can make just with the dry pastel, but I also use I like to use alcohol. Alcohol wash. I don't do it. I mean, if you watch people work that use alcohol washes, everybody does it differently.
Yeah.
And they have different approaches and different reasons for doing it. And some people don't use it at all. And the reason we use alcohol, of course, you can use alcohol, or you can use alcohol, you could use water, you can use mineral spirits, you can use just about anything wet that when you add to the pastel, it's going to, essentially it's making it into a paint that you can move around with a brush. We use alcohol because it dries quickly,
right?
Particularly outside. But I'm using a brush. I know it's about a 1-inch brush, I guess. And so the kinds of marks, and I don't know if this is going to show very well. Yeah, it's showing all right. You know, I can put alcohol in here, and now I can use the brush to make marks. And this kind of makes me happy because being an oil painter, you know, I work with brushes all the time. So it's a little bit like a security blanket you know, I can pick up a brush. But you can see how it's going to modify all these little accent marks. And I don't have to do all of them. Also, I can pick up material and I can pull it over somewhere else. And I can use the brush. And here's where it was interesting with when I started doing pastel, I could see a real correlation between the mark making, mark making that I was making with oil, as you know, in comparison to what I'm doing with pastel. They're very similar. So I can, you know, I can take a brush that, you know, has this shape. This is a not a bright. This is a flat, and I can make these kinds of marks, but I can also make linear marks. You know, so anybody out there who is still a painter or still wants to do oil painting, you know, I always recommend you need to learn how to use this tool. This is the only tool you have, and to be able to make all the different kinds of marks that you might want to make. So, you know, and then you could take, you know, you could sweep across this thing and see how it's kind of, if I get enough juice on there, you get some of these, see the runs.
Yeah. Sometimes
you can use those, and you can also drive the direction. You know, I could come in and I can go this way. You know, I can radiate this thing out. And then once this dries, then it has to dry before I can really put anything else on it.
Yeah.
Then I can come back in and put more pastel on. Or if I was in a case where I had a painting on here and I didn't like it, I can wipe it off, but it's only so much of it's going to come off. But I can just go across and just basically make this purple piece of paper into a green piece of paper.
Yeah.
Once that dries, then I can come in and rework it. So, and you can do that, you know, probably, I don't know, 6-7 times before the sand in the paper it's just absorbed as much as it possibly can. And you know, I've never taken a knife to it. I don't know if you can maybe take a knife and just kind of lightly, I don't know. But
no, I've never done that, but I have done stiff, like a very, very stiff brush. I've done it that way and dusted it off and started over.
You could do that. Well, this is still wet. I don't know if you know, what happens, you know, if I take a paper towel.
It just smears it.
Yeah, it smears it, but you know, I might be able to, but I can change the direction of the mark, so I might be able to use that and also take some of the alcohol out, so that's going to help that dry.
See, and that's what I like too about brushing off and starting over. You kind of get those ghost paintings, and some of the ghost paintings have actually been better than the actual painting I started with, so I've kept them because I thought they looked so cool.
Well, that's a good technique, because I do that with my oil painting too, where I'll build the painting, and then I'll take a palette knife and I'll just scrape through the whole thing, scrape almost everything off, and there's a latent image then that's going to have some sort of, well, depending on which direction you scrape, it's going to have these linear directional lines in there, and then you can come back in and re-accent certain areas and leave other places just kind of ghosted. And that way then it's not all the same level, it's different levels, and it can be really, really interesting. So this is, see, that's almost dry already. So now I'm just going to just for fun, what happens if we, then you can come back in. So you can draw right back onto it.
Yeah.
And and I, like I said, this is doodling for me, and I think it's just so much fun to just do that and get comfortable with moving your hand, and and just do whatever you want. Kind of think like a 5-year-old. Don't worry about trying to accomplish an image. Just doodle and whatever. That's kind of interesting. I put that on. Yeah. I put that in a frame. So all right. So let's. I think we're good with that. That's enough of that.
And I wanted to say, so we're doing a chicken today, which I'm super excited for. I cannot remember how long ago it was, but you did, I think it's 2 of them that you entered into the salon. And that painting was the reason that I wanted to start trying to paint chickens, because I loved it so much.
That, yeah, I think it's the same chicken actually that I'm doing today. It's possible. So you've got the you have the reference. Yeah, you've got the reference material right there, and I have it too. So what I've got here, like I said, I went and got 2 or I got some pieces of sandpaper from the hardware store, and I glued it. I used contact cement, spray cement to put it on this piece of paper. So I've got it. I do have some lines here. Those will probably disappear. We won't have to worry about it. What I'm going to do is, I'll tell you what. I typically draw things out using a China pencil, or some people call it a wax pencil. I use a wax pencil because I've tried working with charcoal pencil. I like charcoal pencils as well, but they tend to break off easy, and then I have to resharpen them. These are a little bit more durable, and particularly if I have them in my travel box, they will, when I pull them out, they're still in good shape. And they have this little piece of string on there. You just pull that off, and it pulls down through the paper, and you just pull the paper off as you need to. So what I'm going to do is just kind of block this bird in. You see, I'm doing my drawing this way as opposed to like a pencil. It gives me a little bit more control. If you're new and you say, well, I really don't know too much about drawing, I'm not that good at it, but I do want to make paintings, that's fine, but you're going to always be limited if you don't work on your drawing skills. It's just something that it's not something you can neglect, because you will always be limited in what you can. I lost my train of thought. So it's you want to be able to see things in linear form, and the only way you can do that is just from doing a lot of it. It's carry it. I always say carry a sketchbook, and I'm as bad as anybody. I don't carry a sketchbook all the time. I should.
Me too.
But that is one of the. It's like keeping a journal. Everybody should keep a journal. We don't, but we do. We should. And the same thing with a sketchbook, because the more you draw, the better you're going to be at everything. It's you're going to have a better way. You're going to have a better sense of how to see things in space, and actually, you look at this drawing. This isn't, that's kind of got a certain amount of weight to it that I can, could I call it finished? Yeah, maybe so. So this is the foundation to everything. So that's enough of that. This is a white chicken. What I'm going to do is, now I'm not going to, when I work these, I don't do a lot of detail. I like to have, my work is, I call it expressive realism. But what it is it's very much about the materials and how they go onto the surface. So this head, I'm just going to lay in, we'll just go ahead and lay this in. And you can see that already, because of the drawing, you understand that it's a rooster. So I'm going to do that. And then I've got, let's see, let's try this. For the cape on this bird, we'll just go ahead and lay some of this in. You see how I'm being pretty bold. Just lay it in. Doesn't have to cover the surface entirely. There is, this is actually, I think they call this the saddle. The wing of the bird is actually right here. So we'll just go ahead and lay that in. And then the comb of the tail. And let's just put a little bit down here just for fun. Then I'm going to take some, I'm going to go ahead and put in some background now before I even do all this part in here. So what I can do is, what you do with a background, which we consider negative space, we can actually use the negative space to carve around the bird. In other words, paint everything that's not the bird, and the bird will pop forward. Do that. Kind of got a heart shape, don't we? All right, so what I'm going to do, just since I've got that on there, typically what I do whenever I do landscape, I'll start with the darks and work my way to the lights. This is a little different situation, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of alcohol just in these dark areas, just to see what happens. And see, there's a little bit of light or a little bit of dark showing through. It's kind of a sky hole. It's a dark sky hole coming through that tail. Let's just do this. The one thing too that this is me, I like to have everything radiate out from the center. And some of you are out there probably thinking, well, yeah, but Eric always talks about the rule of thirds. How does that apply to this? Well, it kind of doesn't. Here's your thirds, and here.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of does. Yeah, in a way. There's
unintentionally.
This is when you get into, and this is basically more of a portrait. And when you have a portrait situation, the rule of thirds really doesn't work. You have to have different other compositional I can't think of the word, stuff that you need to look at, and you approach it a little differently. So I'm going to, now there's a tendency to go light right off the bat, and that's a little lighter than I want. I actually think I'm going to go with, I don't know if this will show. Yeah, see how it's a little more of a soft green?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a cool green. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I put that in there, and I thought, well, I kind of like that, but I'm not sure. Let's go ahead. Let's go with a soft purple. Now, see, that seam is going to cause me some problems, but it might work for us. You never know. Like that, and then I'm looking for big shapes. And you see how I fanned that out as I came this way. Okay. Then let's take that and let's get some green. This is kind of a soft green. Let's kind of run that, because there is some reflection coming off. I'm not really thinking about it that way, but we could go ahead and lay that in like so. Maybe a little in here. Then let's get that foot. The foot of a bird. Some birds are one way, some are, chickens. Not all chickens are the same. I had a pet chicken when I was a kid. It was a buck cochin, and some of you who have chickens will know what that is. They had feathers on their feet. I had one. I kept it in the basement.
You kept your chicken in the basement?
I kept it in the basement. Well, eventually went back to the people who gave me the egg, and I assume they ate it. I don't know what. I'm not sure what happened to that chicken, but a long time ago. And that's not quite the color I wanted, but I don't mind that so much. I don't want to get too cartoony, but I'm okay with that. Then let's get, and the only time, I'm kind of saving my whites, because the only place I'm going to use my whites really are in, there's a backlight coming on this chicken. So I can come in and find a highlight right here. And this is where your drawing skill comes in, because I'm going to show you here, there's also a little bit on, I could just come around, I could just swing this around, but you can really define the form by how you put that on. You see how it's not just swinging line. I'm using a little bit of control here. So I'm going to come here and then on the saddle of the chicken comes here, and then there's this mark maybe, and then maybe up in here. So I'm not going to go all the way around the chicken. In fact, I'm going to lose a little bit of that. And then there might be some of those feathers as they come out here like so. So the saddle of the chicken is catching light right there. Oh, that's kind of looking good on screen.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So right here, the cowl of the chicken. There's this light area here. It comes up. You have what it's actually doing is it's coming up into the head of the chicken. So there's this shape in there. It comes in like so, and I'm using it. I'm making these kinds of marks right now. And let's pull this down here like this. It becomes you don't have to go really nuts with the color, but you do need to look at your value relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That is a practice thing.
Yeah, value is the one thing I struggle with the most.
It's always a challenge because you put it on, you say, well, is that light? You have to. I know what I'm doing is I'm constantly asking myself, is it too light or too dark?
Right.
And sometimes you can make something. If you put it down and go, well, that's too light, or it's not quite light enough. Well, you can make it lighter by putting dark against it, like this. If I want to make that thing this little thing here look lighter, I can put white on it. That'd be one option. The other option is to put dark next to. That's blue. How about purple? Well, that's all right. Sometimes when you put that little piece of blue in there, I thought, well, that's not really what I wanted, but we'll maybe we can work with it. We can always cover it up later.
Yeah.
Probably. When I say always, probably.
Okay, I don't care if this is not archival or not. I would totally hang this on my wall because it's awesome.
When I say it's not archival, it'll outlast me. Probably outlast you. What more does it need to do?
Yeah.
So. I oftentimes when I do workshops, people will ask, well, is it archival? Because when I pull out the roofing tar, they say, is that archival? And I say, well, I don't know that it is, but it doesn't really matter, particularly since we're learning. And you won't move forward unless you experiment, and you can't experiment unless you try things. Okay, so I had this one can of stuff that was like it's a roofing material that you put on a mobile home to seal the roof, and it's a silver in color, and you buy it and it's like a paint, but it's got other things in it, and you shake it up. And I thought this would be a great poor man's gold foil, and it's not. It didn't work. I got a whole gallon of it because I tried it, and it's just like, but you don't know until I got let the puppy outside here.
Yeah, I love experimenting. I have tried, because some of the sanded papers are so expensive and I want to practice more. I have practiced with using just gesso on paper and kind of like making it a little bit finer. I like making it thick and doing it on panels. I love experimenting and painting on whatever I can. I've painted on canvas panel and everything.
There you go. Well, I've been making some panels with pumice gel, and I've just been using the fine pumice, and I haven't really found the right combination that works for me. And I've shied away from the heavy pumice. I don't know how heavy it is. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, it's just the way it is. You sometimes have to purchase something and try it and see. And it might be just exactly what I need.
Yeah.
Who knows? So you don't, and it's like with these pastels, I've got a wide variety of different brands in here that I use. I have certain favorites, but I only have those favorites because I have worked with it, and I know what works for me. And when I started, I called up several people who were doing pastel for years, and I said, "What pastel brand do you like?" Well, there were 2 or 3 names, and I thought, okay, I'll try those. Some of them I couldn't use; I didn't like them. The only way to really understand what's going to work for you is to try it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you get advice, but advice only goes so far. Let's see. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, what I do when I get about halfway into something like this is I reestablish the drawing. Let's see, I'm going to use, here's a dark green. So I'm going to come back in and do some linear things on this, particularly on this collar. Maybe come in and reestablish it. There's a underneath here. This is where the leg is attached, right here. A little over a year ago, I did a thing on comparative anatomy with 𝗟̱c, and we talked about chickens. And chickens do have kneecaps, by the way.
Do they really?
They do. Yeah. Well, if you wouldn't know, okay, since we're here and we've got a little bit of time, the spine of the chicken comes down like this, and then it comes like this, and then the pelvis is right in here, and then the leg, the upper leg actually comes down like so, and then the lower leg comes down like so, and this, what is here, is the heel that goes down to the foot. So, and it has a kneecap right here. Of course, we don't see this part of the chicken leg except at dinner, and the same. And then the scapula on a chicken is flat like this, and the arm bone, and this is the upper, this is the elbow, this is the lower arm, and then this comes back like this, and this is actually the hand, which is the wing. So that's, if you've ever picked up a chicken wing, you know that's that shape. Okay, now I've got that, and you say, well, that's a mess. I can kind of do this, so I can move things around, and some of that stuff, if it stays in there, that's okay. Actually, let's kind of soften that down. You see how I can drag that chicken, some of that stuff off the chicken into that background a little bit. And if I do a little test thing like that, sometimes I can just leave that. So I do that. You were talking about, wiping it down, having ghosting. So now I can come back in with, let's just take a white. It's kind of a cool white there. Yeah, just do that. Do that. Let's go. So now let's take the head of the chicken here. Now, if I had it, I would use a dark, I got dark purple here. Where is it? Here it is. Maybe that would work. I could do, how can I do that? Yeah, I could do that. I'll just put in that dark in there like that. Then I can come in with, I don't know. Let's take this hot orange and just kind of run it along the comb and then down. Now you say, well, there's not really a chicken head there. It's not, there's no detail, but we know enough about a chicken that when we see that, we're going to say, yeah, that's a rooster. And that's a rooster head. As long as it's the right shape, roughly the right shape, and it's the right proportion, it's probably going to tell the story. Now, I don't see an eye, but it must have an eye because it's standing upright. So let's come in here. And the other thing about pastel too is because we have these sweeping motions, we can really pull it's great for roosters because you can pull out the direction of the feathers. And the direction the feathers go on a bird really tell the tale about what's underneath. Again, this could come in here. Little accents. I was talking about accent marks. I can run a little. I can do these things. I really find it's really interesting to. It's probably not the color I want. Maybe this one. That's better. I don't have to cover everything. I can do. I kind of do this. This is something I've gotten in the habit of doing, where I have kind of a band across it that works, and I can use this to paint between the toes, and I can do
15 minutes left.
Let's talk about squiggly lines, and we put a little bit up here. Then I can come in with Let's try this and build. Ooh, I like that green. I like that one a lot. And I could just, you don't have to cover everything. And if I don't cover all the way to the edges, that's fine. Actually, I like to see, and this is just personal preference, but my aesthetic, just because I've done a lot of stuff, I like seeing this purple showing through. I like to see the ground. And even when I'm doing a painting, an oil painting, I like to see ground showing through.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being is, for me, I read that then as almost like a page out of a sketchbook or a journal.
Yeah.
There's something, okay, so here's something to just consider. When we go to a museum and you look at a painting on the wall in a museum, you're seeing the top layer. You don't see all the wonderful layers that are underneath, the building of the thing. And so when I make a drawing, I like to be able to have some of that show through, so that the viewer not only sees the end result, but sees a lot of those. It's like seeing the studs in a house.
Yeah.
They haven't been covered up with drywall yet. So, you see the hand of the maker. And I think this is really fabulous. There's something really fun happened here. You see there's a little green line here and a green line here. So that's separated this little area from this area. So it starts doing this kind of thing. Those things I look for. So you have here, you've got a soft edge, but then you can come back in. Like there's a, right here where this wing is, I can come in, maybe not that. Let's try something a little darker. I can put in a linear element here, and maybe here, and then maybe here, and then maybe even, where I kind of come back in, like I said, reestablishing the drawing. This can all get kind of, I can lose my way. I mean, that happens too sometimes, but, and there's this, we always talk about, well, overworking things. How do you keep from overworking painting? That comes from practice.
Yeah.
You find out and say, well, I'll overwork that one. And then you do the next one, I'll overwork that one. Well, you have to start consciously saying, I don't know if it's finished, but I know that if I do something else to it, I'm going to overwork it. So set it aside and let it sit, and turn it to the wall, and then go on to the next one, rather than constantly trying to, this is not my opus. This is not the last painting I'm ever going to make. As in fact, when I'm working on this, I'm thinking about the next painting. And it's not like I'm trying to get this one done so I can get to the next one, but I'm already, this is not precious to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's fine too. I did one last night. I was in a park doing a landscape. The sun was coming down, and anybody's done sunsets, that it goes, it comes down so fast. So I'm having to guess at a lot of stuff. I'm having to work fast, and the park ranger's standing behind me saying, you got to be out of here at 8:30. So I'm doing a lot of things intuitively because I don't have time to think about it. And I thought that was a mess. So I got home, I looked at it this morning, and it's pretty good. Because I wasn't thinking about it. I was just doing it. And, and of course, if you haven't had much experience doing things intuitively in painting, is not going to give you the fruits that you would like. But as you do more and more of it, you get more and more comfortable. So things happen. So this is finished. I can take it a lot further, but I'm pretty happy with it. I could run it into the ground, but I think I could do a lot more to it before that happens, probably. And then I say, well, let's experiment. What happens if, let's take this color. This is kind of a tangerine. And what happens if I can make that work. Yeah, I like that. And if I use it here, I want to use it somewhere else because it ties it all together. Mm-hmm. I can come in here like on top of that green. I don't really, with pastel, you can mix colors. I don't try to do that. I mean, yes, it's mixing here just by happenstance, but I kind of like to be able to put a color down and leave it alone. But certain colors like this tangerine and that particular green really work well together. And I only know that because I've done it. I've used them before. There are some colors that don't go together very well. So, you find those out too, and you just don't use those. So that's probably one mark too many on that. I probably would be better off going with something a little bit warmer. The beauty of pastel is you've got, with paint, you've got to mix up, and then you got to try it and say, nope, that wasn't it. And you've spent a lot of time, but with pastel, you just look at it, pick it up. And, for plein air, long as it's not raining, what a wonderful material to work with, because you're not wasting time mixing paints. You just pick it up and use it.
So, I mean, you haven't even been doing this a year. Have you done plein air painting with pastels?
I've done a little bit, and enough that I feel comfortable with doing it.
Yeah.
It's the thing that keeps me from doing it, like in an event. I'm not doing it this week, probably. I don't have glass, and I've got frames. For those of you who haven't done plein air events, where you're juried in, and you can go. You have to pack you have to not only pack your equipment, but you have to pack frames and panels and all that kind of stuff. So, and you have to have have a toolbox, and you have to have all your tools that you need to be able to not just make the paintings, but also to make them
to frame it and
presentable, so that you can put them on the wall. So so in terms of pastel, you got to have the frame, you got to have the paper, you got to have, you have to have the glass.
Yeah.
And which is not a problem. You just have to plan accordingly. So, and then the other thing about pastel, if it rains, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a problem when you're doing, watercolor guys too. They have water problems if it rains. They also have problems with humidity. They have problems with all kinds of stuff. Oil painters, not so much. I mean, a rainstorm, you don't want to stand out in the middle of the rain. I've done that. It's bad. But so, there's limitations to every medium has limitations. The one thing I've found, though, because I now have a comfort level with pastel, I can carry both that and oil painting, and so I have choices to make. And actually, if you take one of my pastels and put it next to one of my oil paintings, you really can't tell the difference, because the mark making is very, very similar.
Yeah, it is.
The big advantage to the pastel, I think, is that the colors are fresh. You don't have. This morning I was having trouble with some colors on an oil painting because they were just getting muddy. And then you have to scrape it off and kind of start over. Boy, you just put it down, and you see that you can kind of see the seam that's in here where we glued that down. I kind of like that. I don't mind that.
It adds a little texture.
It's a painting. It's not a photograph. It's not real. It's everything's an abstraction anyway. So let's see what else do I don't really need to do that. Keep picking that up, thinking it's a purple. It's really kind of almost a blue. Now what I can do is, let me show you what I do. What I like to do. I was talking about squiggly lines. Okay, like this. Let me get something else. Let's just take this pink here. So I can take this and I can dance the edge if I want to. I can do this kind of stuff if I want to. And does that make it better? I don't know. It's kind of fun to see it. But so you can, rather than just doing putting it down in bold marks, which you can do, of course, but then you can also come in and do this kind of thing where you're coloring it in. It's like if you had a square, and you can fill it in this way, or you can have another square and you can do that. And, there's all the, or you can just come in and just do that. So now
I'm gonna have to try this. I'm very excited to try painting a chicken.
Yeah. When I'm doing a demo, oftentimes I'll do these little, when I want to demonstrate a concept or an idea, I'll do these little things off to the side. I kind of like those, because they don't mean anything, but they're kind of fun in the course of this drawing, because this drawing has a history now that you and I have shared together. So.
Oh, I love the purple.
What do you think?
I love it. I love the purple. It adds a lot of personality to it.
Can't go wrong with purple. Purple you got to have purple. If you don't have purple, and you got to have several different colors, you're going to have to have several different shades. You have to have dark purple, light purple. You also have to have soft purples, which are more of a gray.
Yeah.
You see look at this. What happens if I put those in there? They don't mean anything, but they just kind of make it sparkle. I don't know if you can see that on the screen or not, but tick marks, little.
Lon, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I am so excited. This was such a great demonstration, getting to see how your mind works, because I want to be able to paint more expressively. So I'm definitely going to have to, I'm going to get a China marker, and I'm definitely going to be practicing.
All right, you and I will have to get together. We'll have to go paint chicken somewhere.
Yes, definitely.
Or
are you
cows,
going to Pace next year?
Yep, it's on the schedule. It's going to be in my backyard actually. So
Nice.
I'm in St. Louis, so it's in the Ozarks is only 4 hours away. So
perfect. We'll have to find some chickens.
Fantastic.
And for you guys who are watching, be sure to check out his Instagram, his Facebook page, or not Facebook, his website. I mean, he might have Facebook. But also, Lon is going to be on faculty at Pastel Live, which is my passion. I love Pastel. So I'm super excited. This is such a fun event. I love getting to be part of this and learning from all of these amazing artists all at one time. So I'm really excited to see what Lon's going to be presenting this year. So be sure to check that out. pastellive.com. And then the other thing I want to mention, if you weren't here yesterday, we have a new event coming up in actually less than 2 weeks. It's June 14th. It's Digital Painting Live. And that is something I'm trying to get interested in, mostly because my kids want to get interested in it. And I want to, connect with my kids. So there's so many different ways that you can use these digital painting tools that they have now, whether it's Photoshop or Procreate, like all of these things. There's so many ways you can use those to kind of enhance your traditional paintings. Like Tiffany Meng has talked about how she uses it to create color studies on location if she's not able to get out and paint. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to be sharing with us. I think it's going to be really helpful and insightful, and I'm super excited. So be sure to check that out too. That's digitalpaintinglive.com. So Lon, anything else that you want to add before you go today?
No, I guess that's pretty much it. Watch for Pastel Live in September, and then and if anybody's going to be up in the Adirondacks, I know some people. I've got a number of friends up there, so I'll be up on late Saturday.
Rena comments that she's going to be there, so she's going to connect.
I know she'll be there. So I'll be out there late. I got to leave here early in the morning on Saturday to drive all the way up there. About 8 hours from here to there, and so save me some food there, because they always do a nice spread the first night. And
we'll have to make sure that happens.
Yeah, so I'll be painting up there. I'll be doing oil and pastel up there. So anybody has any questions or anything, we'll just paint together. It's fun. It's fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lon, so much for
my pleasure.
You guys don't know how much Lon helped out. We were scrambling to try to get stuff scheduled after Pace. We were so just our minds were everywhere after Pace. And Lon stepped in last minute, and it was such a great demo, Lon. Thank you.
Well, good. I enjoyed it too, and it's always fun. So I'm glad we got to work together. Let's do it again. What do you say?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you guys tomorrow with Tiffany Meng. I am excited to see what she's going to be sharing with us for digital painting. So see you tomorrow.